Hello, hello. Hey, everyone. Our guest today has embraced the journey. He's a man who's explored very many parts of the world and done some pretty incredible things, including his time since I've known him in Beijing as the six-time Beijing City boxing champion. He also got his start as an NBA journalist in Korea. I think he covered the Korean Basketball League as well. Meanwhile, as Boxing City champion six times, he moonlighted as a Chinese propagandist or journalist with a white face. Give it up for my friend, Nick, the Quantum Beast Bedard. My name is Brian Schoenborn. I'm an explorer of people, places, and culture. In my travels, spanning over 20 countries across 4 continents, I've had the pleasure of engaging in authentic conversations with amazingly interesting people. These are their stories, on location and unfiltered. Presented by 8B Media, this is Half the City.
Thanks for having me on, Brian. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share the journey. Like you said, I do embrace the journey. The destination is important, but the mass emphasis of my lifestyle and so on has been the journey time and time again. And we're going to talk about a few of those journeys today. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much. I hope this is going to be entertaining. If not, if you learn anything from it, that's great. But I'm here to share my story because this is what this podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm coming back off from a brief hiatus. I had to take a little bit of a break due to some family emergencies. But I'm posting up in the studio right now in Hollywood. Nice little spot. And we're doing this one remote, baby. Nick's hanging out. Where are you at? Are you in Montreal or?
I'm in Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, right? Okay, right on, man. So, what brings you to Toronto? What are you doing back there now?
Well, this is home for me. So after almost a decade of traveling and fulfilling journeys that I've always wanted to fulfill, I've finally come back to my home base and used all of the knowledge, used all of the experience to establish the career that I'm doing now, which I'm super excited about. I don't want to spoil it right away. I guess we could start with kind of what brought me to Asia in the first place, because that's kind of where the journey all begins.
I mean, so you said you spent, like 10 years in Asia, roughly? Is that right?
Nearly a decade, yes.
Yeah,
nearly a decade.
So how do you make a decision to go from Canada, Western culture, Western lifestyle? How do you make that decision to go, take that jump from that to something probably completely different to you? I mean, I know I lived in Asia as well, and I had my own reasons for it. But that can be a pretty big move for people coming from our parts of the world.
It is. And I didn't grow up, dreaming of going to Asia. That wasn't part of my, plan after high school and going to journalism school and thinking, well, you know what, I'm going to go cover some stuff in Asia. That was never part of the formula. What happened was I wanted to be a sports writer. I was a pretty good high school athlete, played soccer, played basketball, even badminton, football. And I was always kind of overachieving in these sports, and oftentimes I would be interviewed by the local journalists, and I thought, well, you know what, that'd be a pretty cool job. I don't think I'm going to be making the NBA at all. Basketball was my favorite sport. I spent countless hours just shooting 500 jump shots from this corner and then 500 from that corner, just going through these regiments of trying the best I'd be at that. And kind of funneled into like journalism. When I chose journalism as something I wanted to pursue, it was really I really brought that kind of mindset of those 500 jumpers from the corner to journalism, where I wanted to learn everything about it. And I wanted to cover basketball. So when I was in journalism school, covering the school team, traveling with them on the road games and really being like a beat writer for the school paper, that really excited me to look at different options on where I could fit into this heavily competitive basketball journalist market. I was really lucky at the time because journalism was transitioning from kind of a print and broadcasting medium to the blogosphere, where journalism was going to a really digital-based medium or media per se.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at that. Blogging was very young. Having your own site was very young. That was very new. We're talking about 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And just to put that into perspective, I think YouTube started, being popular around 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything was still kind of young and figuring itself out. So after journalism school, I really, I picked up a job as a copywriter for an advertising company. And it's interesting that I say that because that's going to come full circle. But before we go too far, as a copywriter, that's when I was kind of mapping this master plan of figuring out where I'm going to fit into this kind of MBA, journalist dream that I had. So the destination was, I want to be an MBA writer. I want to be an accredited MBA writer. I want the badge that says Nick Bedard, MBA Media. But it's the journey that I had to figure out.
And so how did you, how did you figure out that Asia was the place to be?
Well, around that time, it was about 2010, 2011, around the time that I started getting really serious about, shifting from the copywriting role back into what I wanted to do as my dream job per se. Mm-hmm. And the MBA was in lockout at the time. The collective bargaining agreement, they were at the table with the owners, and so there was a lockout in the league. And a lot of players were going to play in Turkey. A lot of players were going to play in Greece. But that economy was also, still recovering from the 2008 financial crisis.
Right.
Europe was tanking. And some say it hasn't really recovered yet, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't really see much happening there in the sense of, to try and kind of fit into this role. There were already people kind of covering the league, but not really, because a lot of cuts were being made to the media industry there, and it just didn't seem as exciting to me. So then I thought, well, what about college ball? Seeing how there's no NBA, maybe I could but I'm in Canada, right? I'm in Toronto at the time, so there isn't really an NCAA presence here.
Right.
But what I did see, and this was during the time where Jeremy Lin was coming out, and he was having his fame. Yao Ming was already established. And I saw some of the players sign these ridiculously high contracts. We're talking about like 6 figures, 7 figures over in China. And we're talking about guys like J.R. Smith and Kenyon Martin, who grew up on the streets and kind of have that, that cultural attitude that really is kind of the opposite of that strict attitude that's in China. Mm-hmm. So I thought, wow, what a story. These guys are going over there and not giving a shit about anything. They're just going to, can I swear here?
Yeah, dude, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
I'm sorry, but they don't give a shit. They're going over there, they're collecting their paycheck while these owners figure it out. And as far as rules and regulations, I'm just showing up to play, and that's it. I mean, I heard this one story about Kenyon Martin first meeting the owner of a team over there, and he had his shoes on the table. He had his Beats headphones on, and the owner's coming to say, like, "Hey, we're happy to have you here." He's like, "Yeah, whatever. Just give me the ball." Yeah, so I thought, wow, what a story. Nobody's covering this. This is hilarious. So I thought, okay. I know where I need to go. I know where I need to go, but I don't know how to do it yet. Mm-hmm. So I needed to come up with a kind of a brand. I need to come up with a website. Mm-hmm. And working in copywriting, I was around people that were doing web dev. I was around people that were buying domain names for clients and so on. So I really had a good insight on the marketing side of it and the development side of it from where I was working. So I was kind of positioned in a good place where I could learn kind of how to take that next step. And then I went to a blogging conference in Toronto where they had a bunch of sports bloggers. And remind you, this is very new at the time. Jamel Hill was there from ESPN. Mm-hmm. A few other like Sports Illustrated writers that were there. And it was a conference where we didn't really know what was going on, but we knew something was coming up. We were talking about the early ages of SB Nation or Bleacher Report. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, if I could follow that and do my own thing, that could probably catapult me into Asia, and I could bring that kind of blog brand with me. Not blog in the sense of what I had for breakfast, but blog in the sense that this is what I'm covering, as part of what a newspaper sports section would be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So
and that's where Basketball Buddha came about, right?
That's where I got the idea. I needed a brand. I needed a name.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, basketballinasia.com. Boring.
Yeah.
Basketballwithcharacteristics.com. And then I was like, basketball is kind of a religion to me at the time. I was really invested into it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's kind of the religion in Asia, the shared kind of, it's the Buddha, right? Everyone kind of thinks of the Buddha as kind of India, kind of Thailand, kind of China,
Yep.
kind of Korea, a little bit Japan. So it's like, okay, basketballbuddha.com. So, I reached out to a high school friend of mine who was in, graphics design. I said, I need a logo. This is what I'm thinking. Actually, my logo is based off a photo of Jamal McGee. I think it's Jamal McGee, who plays for the Lake, JaVale McGee, yeah. And he jumped up while he was in China or something and did this kind of Buddha pose, and I was like, there it is. So if you look at my logo, basketballbuddha.com, and you look at Google search JaVale McGee jumping Buddha stance, you'll see where I got kind of my idea from. So I was really at the drawing table researching a lot, what angle, but I had everything kind of figured out here. Now I needed really to figure out the itinerary part of it. Okay, so I've got a few bucks saved up from my job, got about $2 to $3 grand. How do I turn this into covering a whole season?
Mm-hmm.
I looked at China. I said, well, it's a big country. The teams are scattered all across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted to travel from A to B to Z, that's going to cost a lot, and it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of resources that I don't really have at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So China was while China was where all the action was, I couldn't really do it at the time. It just didn't make sense. Okay. So then I looked at Japan. I thought, Japan, it's kind of expensive over there, right? So the third option is there a basketball league in Korea? and I knew nothing about Korea, absolutely nothing. So I was like, okay, well, what's going on over here? And then Gangnam Style came out. Psy, remember that?
Yeah.
And that blew up. So I was like, there's something going on over there. It has nothing to do with basketball, but there's a league, and it's close enough to China that I could kind of be awake during the Chinese games and watch them and cover them. So I was like, okay, a rail pass for Korea costs $300, and you could travel for like 6 months unlimited.
Nice.
You could stay in these motels. They call them love motels. So oftentimes, so when I flew there, I checked into this motel with like a heart-shaped jacuzzi. I was like, wow, this is not bad for $40. And I was like, okay, cool, I could dig this.
Wait, so
heart-shaped. And then I traveled to another one where it was like Eminem themed. They had like Eminem wallpaper, and like not Eminem the rapper, but like the candy.
Candies, yeah.
yeah.
Wait.
These are really interesting.
So there's like all sorts of themed hotels in Korea? Is that what you said? Like,
they call them love. They call them love motels.
So why don't you explain to the listeners what a love motel is?
I had no idea what it was. I just booked these on booking.com, and it was a cheap motel, and I had my own room with Wi-Fi. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like, I was thinking about doing the hostel thing, but I didn't want to be interrupted. I was really serious about kind of staying up all night and writing to go and back and bring the photos, bring all my notes, and do some editing and do some brainstorming and write articles. So that's the reason. So when I flew to Korea, and I landed, I went to check in, and that's the one in Seoul where it had the heart-shaped jacuzzi. Now I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I could dig this. A couple condoms there. And I was like, all right, well, I kind of know what this is for. It's probably for young lovers looking.
This is amazing.
But yeah. But there was a huge, like 55-inch flat screen LG TV. I was like, whoa, man. It surprised me that it didn't come out of the wall, because this place, I had like LED lights and stuff. It was really like it was like a red dim, like, I was like, this is pretty cool. Whatever, man. Like, yeah. So that's kind of what brought me to Asia in the first place, and that's what made me choose Korea as my starter point.
Interesting. So how long were you in Korea, and where were you? Were you in Seoul?
Well, I was in Seoul to start. So I spent a week in Seoul to gather my stuff, get over the jet lag, and then the season was about to begin. Now, I had no media credentials. I was writing a couple articles about Tracy McGrady signing with a Chinese basketball shoe brand. I was writing a couple articles that, like, Dwayne Wade was in a cell phone commercial in China. Just anything to get my website going. It wasn't anything relevant, but, you know, just so I had something to add on to. And when I got to Seoul, the league started in a week. Now it's a 6-month league, so I'd planned to be there for 6 months.
Right.
And in that time, I was to travel using my rail pass that I paid $300 for. It's a company called KTX, and it's kind of like Amtrak, where it'll take you anywhere. But with this rail pass that's only accessible to foreigners, you could travel the entire, you know, country within 6 months. So it was perfect.
Really?
So $300 rail pass.
Like unlimited?
Unlimited. It's like a monthly membership to and it's to kind of, it's subsidized for foreigners so that you could explore the country a little bit.
Tourism and stuff, sure.
So that's where I took advantage of that. And as the season started, I covered a game in Seoul. Now I was sitting courtside because courtside seats were super cheap. It was like $25.
What?
25 to $30. And these aren't big, like, arenas like we have. Like, it's not the Staples Center or Madison Square Garden. What we're talking about is kind of like a glorified high school gym where there's about 5,000 fans, you know, with a bunch of mascots and a lot of cheerleaders. You know, K-pop is big over there, so they integrated that with the cheerleaders and so on.
So I've never been to a Korean basketball game, but I was in. I spent some time in Busan, and I went to a baseball game there. It was the Lotte Giants. It was funny. Like the stadium was about half full, and everybody was seated behind the home team's dugout.
Yeah.
And the reason
and on top of the dugout,
top of the dugout were like between 3 and 5 just absolutely gorgeous cheerleaders standing on top. They've got their own cheer for every single batter, every single player. They've got their own fucking moves. Get all these horny baseball fans like, what are you there for? Are you watching the game, or are you enjoying the scenery? You know.
Oh, exactly. No, it had very little to do with the game, but a lot to do with the entertainment that's between batters or between plays or during a timeout or something.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have the mascot flying out of a cannon going to do a dunk and stuff, and they have, you know, the mascot, you know, kind of like dancing like K-pop stars. Right. So no, it was really interesting when I first got there. Now I didn't have any media credentials, so I was just kind of documenting stuff from courtside. I had a camera, I was taking photos. So I wasn't doing any interviews or anything. I was just, my angle was, what's it like watching a professional basketball game in South Korea? That's what my base was. So in Seoul, it's like this. In Ulsan, it's like this. In Jeongju, it's like this. In Busan, it's like this. So a little bit of different experiences from different cities that host professional basketball teams in South Korea. And it tracking all of my audience with Google Analytics. You know, I working in the advertising firm as a copywriter, I got to know these tools a little bit. I got to know what keywords mean and stuff like that. So I was tracking this, and I was seeing, okay, where's the audience coming from? And a lot of it was Korean Americans, specifically Korean Americans who were playing ball and were interested in the NBA, but also wanted some ties to back home. Another angle, and I'm kind of going ahead of myself here, but another angle I saw was a lot of college basketball fans who are following guys who weren't drafted in the NBA but signed in a foreign country, whether it be Spain, whether it be Greece, or whether it be South Korea. They wanted some news about their guy who played at New Mexico State University or San Diego State University, and they want to know what he's doing now because he was lighting it up at their school. So those are kind of the two angles that I saw early, and I kind of pushed my content towards that, the early adopters.
Was that before the D League really got going, or the G League or whatever it's called, or?
It was the D League at the time, and the D League was still there, but you don't make as much money as you do playing professional ball in the D League as you do in South Korea. So in a D League, you might make 50 grand a year. Back then, it was probably 35, 40. You don't make a lot. In Korea, for an entire season, you're banking 250K to 400K.
Oh, wow.
You know, so it's a big difference. Mind you, the idea of transitioning your professional career from the D League to the NBA is much more appealing because you're there, you're playing for the farm team. But if you're just committed for the money, perhaps you're going to go play somewhere else and give up that kind of NBA dream, because not a lot of players go play in China or go play in Korea and then go to the NBA. Does that mean it's never happened? No, it's happened, sure, depending on the agent and so on. But once you kind of leave America and go play pro ball somewhere else out of college, and you're not drafted, your chances of making the NBA are pretty slim.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't really hear too much about it unless maybe Spain, like the Spain League might be a couple, like, you know,
or the D League, or if you're willing to grind it out and collect that 50K a year and just you know, travel on buses and stay at the Motel 6 and the rigorous life of, you know, it's kind of like the opening band for, you know, the lead act, right? You're not a star, but you're the opener, and maybe if you get enough audience, you could be the star. You know, but it's a journey. It is. So a lot of players will give up that destination of NBA and follow the money. And the money really is in China. It really is in Korea. It's in Japan. And the cost of living is lower, as you know. You lived in China, so the cost of living is lower.
Further over there.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are some, because I mean, I've been to Korea twice, but I've only spent maybe like total of like 2 weeks there. So as you're traveling around to these different cities, you know, what are some of the things that kind of stood out to you? You know, do you have any, like, do you got some good stories of something that, like, you know, maybe you're trying to get someplace and just something really surprised you, or you struggle with something? Like, I know you got some, I see you nodding.
Well, it was really interesting for me because I didn't really have a job, right? So during the day, I wasn't really going to work. I wasn't going to an office. My work really started at like 6 p.m. on game day. So during the day, I'd kind of go out and go around. But there are a lot of old people in South Korea, you know, because that's what I saw. I was like during the day, everyone's in work or in school, so I was kind of hanging out with the older people. Like, so if I would go to grab a coffee or something, it's a bunch of old people just shooting the shit or something like that. Or if I was going to the mall to try to go shopping, it's a lot of old people. So I didn't really have that kind of the same experience as somebody who kind of works there and lives there and so on. I guess my first impressions it's really hilly. There's a lot of mountains, not big mountains, but it's not as flat as Toronto. In California, you guys have a lot of mountains and hills and so on. So it's probably different for someone from that perspective, but I saw a lot of mountains, and I thought that was pretty cool. The cities are kind of built on mountains. So it's, that was pretty cool. Busan was really nice.
Busan's gorgeous.
One thing that really popped off about Korea is the advancement in technology. Their Wi-Fi was everywhere. You're always connected. Televisions, it was state of the art. You know, you go to have noodles at some, you know, dive noodle bar, and there'll be like a 65-inch like flat screen TV with like high definition, and the place is pumping with surround sound. They really take pride in their technology, and you know, the transportation system in Seoul is fantastic, and it's got TVs in it and stuff like that. The tech is awesome. They were really advanced in technology.
That's Samsung for you, huh? You know, I wonder. You're talking about the old people. You talk about these old people. It just reminds me of being in Beijing. You know, you see these usually right about the time dusk starts to happen, when it just starts getting dark. At almost every city corner, sidewalk corner, you see just like dozens of old like grandmothers dancing. We call them the dancing grannies. Like they're everywhere. Is there? I mean, anything like that that you saw over there? Or?
Yeah, a lot, but they do it indoors. They don't have these I mean, they do it outside, but not as much as China. They have these like bars that are like these nightclubs that are just for old people, like old people swingers type deal. Yeah, they have these like 65 and up swingers. Come on in, you know?
Come on.
Yeah. And I mistakenly popped into one of those. I mistakenly popped into one of those thinking, oh, this place is happening, you know? And I was like, oh, jeez, yeah.
Bro, you know, try to get with one of them. You're like, hey, what's up, girl? What's your name is?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. No, but no, it was a really good experience. So I played it out. I was there for 6 months, and within that 6 months, my website was getting a little bit of traction. It was getting more popular. I started with getting into AdSense, which for people who don't know what AdSense is, you know those annoying banners on media sites? So those banners are there from AdSense. So essentially a brand will try to run display advertising on news sites, and we as news sites would allow those banners to run across our website. So that's a sense of revenue. So I thought, okay, I've got 10 million unique, 10,000 uniques per month at the time when I started. I could kind of monetize. So I started doing that. And then some of the foreigners I was seeing when I was back in Seoul, and I kind of knew where they would go hang out in a place called like Itaewon, which is where the military base is. So I'd kind of see those basketball players. I'm like, hey, I'm the basketball Buddha guy, and they're like, who? I'm like, yeah, look, I'm covering the league, all right. So introducing, I'd love to, you know. So they'd be like, yo, hit me up after a game one time, and I'll give you, yeah, so cool. So I kind of started being like a social butterfly and really involved in the league, and no, it was really cool. It was a great experience. 6 months. So I had my site going. Come the off season, I had no reason to stay there. So I came back to Toronto to kind of regroup, say, okay, what's next? Maybe I'll go back next year. But I was quickly called by somebody that I met at the game. Somebody had passed on my website to the vice commissioner of the league, who had 2 kids studying in Canada. I said, look, I love what you're doing. After seeing what you've reported, I think it's great for the league. If you come back next year, we'll grant you full media access.
Nice.
You know, we'll have a media card for you. We want you to keep covering the league. We don't know what your plans are right now, but we'd love to have you back next year if you want to do it again. Great. Awesome. So I kept myself busy. You know, I went back to that copywriting job, which sucked because, you know, I knew I was leaving within like 8 months.
Right.
But like, hey, give me another chance, and they did. So then that flew by, and I was still covering off-season stuff where NBA players would travel to China or travel to Korea, and I knew where to get my news sources from now. So, you know, Korea has their own Korean language basketball forums where they and it was as easy as me just copy pasting the article, putting it into translator, taking words out and taking a kind of story out and kind of writing it in my own style. I was doing that for Korean news, and I was doing that for Chinese basketball news.
Nice.
Okay. So you could call it plagiarism, fine. But at the time, no one was doing it. Now everyone's just spinning articles all over the place, right? Now you're seeing, the same article rewritten 100 million different ways. But at the time, it was very, very new. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that, and that kept the website going for the off season. Come next season, I was back in Korea. This time I had a media pass. I was talking to the journalists that were in Korea. They knew who I was. They're like, yeah, cool. I made really good connections there. And then I had access to the players. I had more access to the coaches and so on. And I spoke a little bit of Korean, not much, mm-hmm. but I spoke enough to get by. Enough so that and timing is everything here. The Asian Olympics, which in Canada is kind of equivalent to the Pan American Games. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of that?
Yep.
The Asian Olympics came around, and I was hired by the Asian Olympic Committee to cover the basketball.
Nice.
Which was great. So they found me, they contacted me, they said, we love what you're doing with Asian basketball. You're the perfect fit for this role. We're trying to find one journalist to cover for our website for each sport, and we'd like you to be that guy. It wasn't high paying. They put me in media. They put me in Media Village. It was super cool. It was a great experience. From there, I met a lot of journalists from China, from Japan, and so on. And that is where I was. I got a connection to China Daily, which is in Beijing, mm-hmm. and they were looking for writers. And the guy who was covering sports for China Daily, also a Canadian, said, hey, why don't you come on over? We've always got spots available for journalists. I'll put you in contact. I said, great. I didn't think much of it, but 2 months later, I got a chance. They said, yeah, we want you to come over and interview and so on. So that's kind of where. And I didn't talk too much about the Asian Olympics. It was a great experience. It was a daunting work schedule. Mm-hmm. I mean, all day from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. just covering hoops, which I love. Mm-hmm. But my God, was that tiring, because after covering, you have to go back to editing, and you can be up till 2 a.m, and then you do it all over again for 10 days.
Yep.
Right.
You know what's crazy about all that is, you're telling this story, and it's just, it's amazing to me how, you want to do something, right? You want to be a journalist. You want to cover basketball. Deep down in your heart, this is what you want to do. And regardless of whether you've got credentials or whatever else, you're like, fuck this, I'm doing it. I'm not going to let anybody stop me. Right.
Absolutely.
And you fucking did it in your own little guerrilla journalism style.
Speaking of which, this is where everything kind of comes together. So after this grind of covering the Korean Basketball League for a year from courtside, mm-hmm. to the grind of covering another year from press row, mm-hmm. to the grind of covering the Asian Olympics, that's where I met the NBA Korea writer. So the guy who's in charge of NBA Korea, all content NBA Korea, NBAKorea.com, something like that. He said, well, I also do a magazine here in South Korea, and we cover NBA. It's an NBA magazine in Korean. We would like you to come on as a columnist to write an opinion piece for every month, every edition, and we will grant you NBA media credentials.
Awesome.
So that's where, and then it was like, wow, 2 years, everything just, and it happened. Some people would wait 10 years, 15 years, get coffee for that guy, plug this printer in, and kind of work their way up the ranks in a newspaper. But in 2 years, I finally had NBA credentials due to the guy who saw the work I was doing at the Asian Games, said, I'm an NBA writer. I know you're friends with this guy who's covering the Korean Basketball League. We would like some sort of partnership here. And it was awesome, man. I was like, great. So I did a monthly column for them. And if ever I was going back to Toronto, I had my NBA press card, and I could go interview players on the Toronto Raptors or the visiting team. So I remember one time, the first time I was an NBA journalist with my press card.
Mhm.
I got the email saying, yeah, you're on the list. You're back in Toronto. There's your press. I was doing a story from on a bench player, like the 12th man of the Toronto Raptors.
Mhm.
And he played in the Korean Basketball League for a year.
Mm.
So there's kind of a connection there, and that was where my kind of opinion piece came was okay, what was it like playing in South Korea, and what's it like playing in the NBA, and what are the main differences? I could say it from a journalist perspective, but not many people could say it as a player's perspective.
Right.
So it was really interesting to get into the locker room, interview Greg Stiesman, and who I believe went to Nebraska or Wisconsin. But anyways, that was kind of my first experience as an NBA journalist. So in 2 years, this kind of crazy plan that was kind of formulated from Blogs with Balls, which was the bloggers conference that I went to, and 2 years later, I'm an NBA journalist. So it was really a dream come true. It was a huge accomplishment.
Wow. Well, that's awesome, dude. I just, again, it's that hustle, dude. It's that, the guerrilla warfare style of, I'm gonna bob and weave and go places where you don't think you're gonna be seen, and just shit opens up, dude. That's crazy. So you mentioned that you got that call from China Daily. So for those of you that are not familiar, China Daily is, they have Chinese news, but they have English news as well. But it's a really big English news outlet in China. It's a giant Chinese propaganda machine, if you will. So what was it like? When you went from Korea to Beijing, like what was first? First, what was it like being a propagandist for the powers that be? Because journalism is different in China. It's like in America, for example, it's free speech and all that. It's finding facts, or sharing your opinion or whatever it is. Calling the government out or whatever else the case may be. In China, it's more like from my understanding, more like the official mouthpiece of the government.
Right. And there are a few different outlets that are the mouthpiece of the government. Al Jazeera is kind of, Qatar's version of that. Mm-hmm. RT.com is, Putin's version of that. Mm-hmm. If you want, NPR is kind of a mouthpiece of US, but it's not totally funded by the government. They take donations and so on, and I think they do a really good job with their content. But nevertheless, they're a wing of the so on. Now, some are more extreme, like RT.com or in China, every single media outlet is the mouthpiece of the government, right? There isn't an independently owned news outlet. But I didn't really look at that angle at the time. For me, what it was is, wow, a journalism grad who started as a blogger, mm-hmm. and now I'm working for one of the the highest delivered paper in the world. Publication wise, their numbers are through the roof because their reach is just so huge, right? I didn't look at it as the official mouthpiece or a propaganda thing. I was thinking, wow, I'm officially a journalist now. I'm not a blogger, not a magazine opinion piece. I am a journalist. Nice. And I wasn't a sports journalist. Actually, they threw me on culture. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm a writer is a writer. A journalist is a journalist. I could still do basketball Buddha on the side. Mm-hmm. I'm in China now, and I could use kind of my journalism credentials from China Daily to have access to the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association, mm-hmm. right? And at the time, Stefan Marbury was there. He was highly popular. So you want to talk about like traffic and clicks to your website? Mm-hmm. Stefan Marbury is a god for that. Nice. He will get you clicks galore because the type of stuff that he does in China is like, what? He's got a statue outside the Wukesong Arena, which mm-hmm. is the home arena of the Beijing Ducks. So this guy, go ahead.
Talk about Marbury for a second, because he's got an interesting story, right? Like he had his career in the NBA, and he was, perennial all-star, right? Like he was a stud. It wasn't a goat, right? But like he was a legitimate star. NBA lockout happened.
At one point in time, Brian, sorry to cut you off, but he was the scoring champ of the NBA. Nobody in the NBA scored more than Marbury.
Mm-hmm.
He was a perennial all-star.
Yep.
He was Brooklyn's kid type thing, right? From the big market of New York, and they've got their basketball superstar,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was covering the Beijing Ducks. I started, and I got to thank Diane from Infront, because she worked hard to get me that press credential. Getting press credentials for anything in China is very difficult. You've got to be vetted. You've got to promise to, only write good things type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But she kind of worked the sports, and Infront is like the branding firm of the CBA. Like a lot of brands in America will have their marketing agency. So I guess Infront was kind of their marketing agency, and that's how I got, shoved into the meet, because they also decided who gets press credentials and so on. So she got me in, and she's really cool. I was covering the Beijing. Shout out Diane. Yeah. I was covering the Chinese Basketball League only in Beijing. I wasn't traveling because I was working full time, and after work I'd go to the games on a Tuesday or Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
At first, Marbury wanted nothing to do with me. Absolutely nothing to do with me. I thought, hey, he's going to see another foreigner. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to be able to, because I've been able to relate with other foreigners in Korea easily.
Yeah.
They've always wanted to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
Marbury's going to be the same. He just a cold shoulder. Nothing to do with me. It was very difficult to get him to say anything, and this lasted for like half the season. And I couldn't go like, hey, Diane, he doesn't want to talk to me. Or I couldn't go, hey, coach, why is it? No, at the end of the day, it's his own decision. He doesn't want to talk to you. He doesn't want to talk to you. Yep. I had nothing against him. He had nothing. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. He just didn't want to talk to me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to cover the other guy, which is Randolph Morris, and we're going to kind of kick it off there, and maybe Marbury will come in. Yes, I found out that there has been major negative press on Marbury from the United States, okay? And there's been absolutely great press from Marbury in China.
Yep.
So who's he going to want to talk to? The guy who looks American or the guy who looks Chinese?
Right.
He's not going to want to talk to me because he thinks I'm there to write another stupid, Marbury piece. No, forget about it. He doesn't want to go into those waters. Mm-hmm. So half a year, I'm talking to Morris. I'm covering the games. Finally, I come out with a Marbury piece. Okay. I got Morris talking about him. I've got Sun Yue, who played with Kobe Bryant in the Lakers, got a ring. Mm-hmm. I got Sun Yue talking about him. I've got enough understanding of what Marbury's like on the basketball court to really have a basketball story about Marbury without any of the stuff off the court that he's doing in Beijing. I didn't want to go into that. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to cover his abilities as a professional basketball player and what he's like as a teammate. Mm-hmm. Once that story came out, the very next practice, hey man, love the story. Who are you? yeah. Who are you working for? And I said, hey, look, man, I'm just this guy. I got this website. I'm doing this. All right, respect. And then he's still kind of hesitant to talk to me, but he had like a trainer there from Germany that was just Marbury's trainer, mm-hmm. and he take care of his body and so on. And so he got close to me. So I kind of it wasn't until playoff time that I could really go up to Marbury after a game and ask him any question.
That's crazy. Dude, I mean, yeah, he got shit on, man. He got shit on pretty hard towards the end of his NBA career. But then he came back, in China, man. I mean, he won what, 3 titles in 4 years, I think, with Beijing Ducks. I mean, that's why they got a statue. I mean, he's like a Kobe, rest in peace, or or Jordan or whatever over in China, man. It's crazy. It's like China's fucking number one foreign son, basically. Like,
Let me tell you something about Marbury.
To get like a green card or something, right?
He took care of his body, number one.
Yeah.
He really took care of his body. Okay. And the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association season is not the 82 season of NBA.
Mhm.
They're playing 40 games. So it's cut in half. Okay.
Nice.
He understood, as a point guard, understood the game enough that he knew exactly when to get his teammates involved and when to just take it to the rack. And he would do the latter a lot. He knew he could beat anybody in that league, and he was fearless in driving and just finishing at the hoop or getting fouls or so on. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the best shooter, right, but he didn't need to be. Mm-hmm. He was such a good floor general that it was amazing. Like his crossover, his speed, his stop and starts. It was just amazing to see. And there were a lot of other foreign point guards that came in, but they couldn't handle the strength, the stop and starts, the willingness to go the hoop. A lot of the foreign point guards at the time were just bombing threes, mm-hmm. right? Bombing threes. But Marbury was like relentless. He'll go right down and just like, he'll knee you in the heart before laying it up, and he'll get the call. You know, he was just fearless, and it was a really cool playing style. And I thought to myself, well, how long can this last, you know, as he's getting older? But he was so good at taking care of his body. And he had that trainer from Germany, mm-hmm. who was so good at kind of, you know, getting his body, ready for the next game or ready in the off season. He was always in fantastic shape, and he was just super smart. So that's where he had his success on the floor. Everything outside of that was kind of played off his success on the floor. Right? What's this successful basketball player in China doing outside? Well, I mean, he can be doing anything. Yeah. And they'll be like, yeah, that's awesome. So finally, I remember going to Blue Frog, which is kind of the in and out of Beijing.
Oh, Blue Frog. That's right.
Yeah. So I went there.
So those are actually, it's hard to find good Western food in China. Those are some decent burgers right there, and they're huge. Like, I mean, those patties are what, like 2-3 inches thick, like, you know, 5 centimeters thick, something like that. But they're huge. Yeah, place is great. So
Marbury and the other foreign player who was living there at the time, Randolph Morris was hurt, so they brought in Damian Wilkins, who is Dominique Wilkins' nephew.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was doing an interview with Damien. He was super, you know, open. He said, yeah, come on over. This is where I live. You come over to my condo. And it was in Wangfujin.
Wow,
right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right. So they were in the Oriental Hotel in Wangfujin. It was like a hotel they were in suites. Right?
Nice.
Kitchenettes and everything. So I did an interview with Damian Wilkins there. And afterwards, the translator from Marbury, who was kind of Marbury's agent as well in China, mm-hmm. came in, and he was kind of taking care of Damien at the time as well. He said, hey, we're all going to Blue Frog. You want to join us? So that was like kind of my first real outside of basketball interaction with Marbury. Nice. So we're driving there, and I got to tell you, Brian, I totally choked. I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. I just ate my burger. And I didn't want to talk. I just let them have their thing, and I was a silent observer. I was going to write an article about it, but I had nothing to write because I didn't do anything. I totally choked.
Oh, you got starstruck. I get it.
Absolutely.
That's funny. I found the best way to keep me from getting starstruck is, well, one is just treat everybody like they're people, right? But like, secondly is do as little research as possible on whoever these people are. So that I can just fucking ask them any sort of bullshit question. If they look at me like I'm dumb, I'm just like, I don't know, you're just a guy. You know?
I was so used to the mass preparation. What's the angle going to be for this interview? What's the angle going to be for this job? After the game, what questions am I going to ask? Mm-hmm. That when I didn't have any preparation, I didn't know how to kind of approach it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to do anything. I don't want to ask anything that was like outside of the line. So we just hung out. And afterwards, we used to go out drinking at like Elements and stuff like that. Like I found out Marbury was just a regular Lao Wai, which is the Chinese word for foreigner, just like you and I. Like he likes going out and having a good time and stuff like that. And he's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, people are people, man. At the end of the day, I mean, everyone's pretty much the same. People do different things. They've got different ways of going about things, but they've all got the same basic needs, right? They want to, take care of their family, have a little fun, and maybe make a better life for themselves, right? So, yeah, it's that's cool, man. So you go out with Marbury quite a bit. Did that relationship with him and understanding that level of dedication and physical fitness and stuff, like, did that kind of lead you towards the boxing scene, or what happened there? How did that work? Because you kind of shot up out of nowhere. You went from nowhere to like the boxing to the Beijing city champ, dude.
After that season, the first season, a CBA in China, I was done with the contract at China Daily. I got an offer to do radio, which I was super excited about because I've always been a podcast fan. And I took that opportunity. It was more money. It was this is how I met you, because my job was to be a field reporter. I had a segment called Nick on the Streets.
Oh yeah, Nick on the Streets, baby.
Nick on that show. Yes. So the job the description was, hey, we just want you to go and explore culture in Beijing and get a foreigner's perspective on it. And I totally twisted it and turned it into, it's Nick on the streets. And it's like, hey, I'm over here in Wangfujing with my friend Brian, who's a former Marine in the United States, and Trump is president, and we're going to ask him about that, and pretend like there's a bunch of stuff going on behind us, and like, because it's a radio, right? It's theater of the mind. So it's like, and it's just you and I standing in a parking lot.
Oh, that's right. That was when Trump visited China, right?
That was when Trump visited China. So Trump had recently been elected. It was his first state trip to China, and we were talking about it, and who better to have on than a former Marine, right? So that's when you made your appearance on Nick on the Streets.
That's right.
So I had that segment. I was finding different things from Monday to Friday to go, which was a grind because, what are you going to talk about? So I just had to find events going on and just push my way inside of it and say, hey, I'm here, and this is who I'm talking to, and this is what's going on. And is my 10 minutes up yet? Oh my God, it is. Back to you in the studio. It was awesome. I loved it. It was, so I'd record that. I'd edit it. I'd run it back to the studio just in time for their 5 o'clock show.
I was trying to remember if when I interviewed with you on your show, if it was about the Trump thing or if it was about the sports stuff.
We did a few different ones. I believe there were 2 or 3 of them I did, but it was always a different topic. That's what I liked about what I did is I always talked about something fresh, something new.
Yeah. Do you remember when I did so I did that Manchester, I produced that Manchester United and Manchester United and Liverpool event in Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
I remember we were hanging out, dude, and it was me, you, and Tyler, another friend of ours, and I got this call from this guy that I met when I was working for this media company in Beijing. He's from like Australia, but he's like, I don't even know his last name. But his name is Co-Star. And he calls me, he's like, hey mate, he's like, I'm in Beijing, I'm in a hotel, why don't you come hang out? And I'm like, hey, I'm getting creeped out about it. And I'm like, dude, it's me and like 2 other dudes. He's like, yeah, just bring them all over. We'll hang out, we'll have drinks. And I'm like, dude, why don't you just come to a bar with us? He's like, no, mate. He's like, just come on. Remember, I was all skeeved out about it. But we took the risk anyways, and we went. And
was he staying at the Intercontinental?
I think so, yeah. But he was in the suite, like the presidential suite. And I was like, what the hell is this guy doing?
I think he was in the penthouse.
It
was like a Malaysian businessman.
Yeah, but he's from Australia. But he's like living in Malaysia or Cambodia, I don't know, somewhere in Southeast Asia. And we all get together, and he found out that that you do sports journalism, and that Tyler had done some stuff related to like tennis and some other stuff. He's like, he's like, hey, you guys want to talk about this event, this, put on this show? And me being the entrepreneur, trying to figure out what the hell my path was at that point, nothing to do with sports. I'm just like, fuck it, let's do it.
I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't remember if the interviews were done. I think we might have done interviews for both of them, actually. I think we might have, but I just remember, dude, that was
Did I interview Co-Star that night?
I don't know. You should have.
I think I might have. I think we were all just drinking, and I'm like, hey, we should do an interview right now.
Yeah.
And I think I'm here with Co-Star, who's running this thing, and I used it for Monday's segment. Yes. So you see how great this job was. I mean, you want to talk about like opportunity. You could really solidify yourself as anything there. Like there are a lot of foreigners who are like starring in movies in China. There are a lot of foreigners who are spokespersons of companies they know nothing about. I was like on the fly, just interviewing anybody and turning it into a segment for a radio show.
God, that's crazy. That's crazy, dude. So how did all of that lead into your boxing career? Because that's what I want to talk about.
So, in high school, I was really into sports. I'm a very athletic person naturally. I'm pretty good at any sport that you throw my way. I could kind of figure it out quickly. I've got kind of that natural gift. Like I'm not a star at any of them, but I could keep up with any. So basketball is very often played in China like casually or socially, but it's pretty rough, man. Like if you do a layup on a Chinese guy, he might elbow you in the face or like push you and stuff. Like they're pretty dirty over there when it comes to like street ball and stuff, and they'll say, hey, it's street ball, man. I'm like, yeah, but you can't shove me into the backboard, man. Like, geez, so I was like, okay, well, maybe like it's tough to find a game. It's tough to, be really competitive. I played in a couple leagues with a bunch of different foreigners, but I just wasn't getting my, athletic itch. So I was like, okay, what else could I do? I'd love to golf, but golf is really expensive in China. And there aren't much screen golf or driving ranges anywhere because land is so hard to come by. Mm-hmm. So I was like, man, I don't know. You remember the guy at China Daily, the sports writer who actually got me the job? Mm-hmm. Well, he's actually like in the Canadian Boxing Journalist Hall of Fame.
What?
And he's written books about like Canadian heavyweights and stuff like that. So during my breaks at like China Daily, I'd go down and he's always smoking a cigar at the restaurant downstairs on the patio, and he would just tell me stories about boxing. Wow. I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. And I got into it a little bit. I started watching it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to join the boxing. What the heck? And the guy's like, you should, man. You should. Like, totally go for it. Go for it. He wanted to be my trainer and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to a gym. I'll get involved. I'll start boxing. So I hired a Filipino boxing coach who's a lot like Manny Pacquiao. Huh. And I didn't even know how to throw a punch. I was like, how do I jab? What's a jab? Mm-hmm. But like I said, the athletic itch or the natural ability, in 3 months, I kind of figured it out. I was like moving around and stuff and like slipping jabs and slipping punches and throwing combinations. And I was like, whoa. He's like, you want to compete in this little like white collar competition they've got going? I was like, fuck yeah. Why the hell not? Like, throw me in there. At this point, I'm sparring with you, so I don't mind. Let's do it. I'm pumped, right? So I'm going back to China Daily and say, hey, I'm going to join this like white collar, and it's like going to have my first match and so on. And the guy's like, yeah, do it. He's like this old guy, right? This old school boxing guy who used to like go to Sugar Ray Leonard fights. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. So I get this fight in this like Shuangjing Showdown is what they call it. And it's a white collar boxing. They throw me up with this guy. I don't know who he is. I'm scared shitless. But I'm pumped, I'm like, fuck, dude. I might get my ass kicked, but whatever, man. I want to compete. So I go. The guy from China Daily's there. He's like, I want to be your cut man. I'm like, fuck, man. I'm like, I don't know if it's 3 rounds, 2 minutes, man. I don't know. But yeah, sure. So he's got his old Vaseline. He's got his like Q-tips and stuff like that. He's got an extra towel. He's got a bucket I could spit in. And everyone else has got like one trainer and like their girlfriend, you know? But I've got this like really like intense cut man guy who's like trying to live in his nostalgia moment. So you know, my Filipino trainer's like, hey, Nick, who is this guy? You know, he's like Stitch Duran type thing. You know, like he's like, I'll stitch you up, don't worry. I was like, okay. So we're boxing in 16-ounce gloves, which are like pillows, and it's outside, and it's a barbecue with beers, and I'm like, all right, let's rock and roll. So the first round, I'm just running around. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I could see that like this guy is pretty slow and he kind of sucks. So I try to like throw a little punch at him, and I land and I run away, and I'm like, oh, well, that worked. You know, so I keep running because I'm taller and faster than he is. No idea what I'm doing, spinning around in a circle, and ding, the bell rings. I'm like, oh shit, first round's over. I survived. And so you know, so I'm in the corner, and the guy's like throwing water down my pants. He's like, yeah, that'll get you pumped up. I'm like, okay, whatever. The Filipino guy's like, keep moving, keep boxing, keep punching. You know, this is fucking intense, man. Holy shit. Like, ding, second round starts. I'm like, all right, I could run with this guy. Like, okay, I start punching. I get knocked in the face. I'm like, oh shit. And I'm all cocky and stuff. So whenever I get hit, everyone's like, yeah, get him. And like, whenever I hit him, they're like, oh, boo. So like, whatever, we're dancing a little bit, and it kind of gets intense, and we're tying up, and we're punching. We're just throwing like wild punches. Mm-hmm. Bing! Second round over. Third round, I come out, and I don't know why, but my the old school guy from China Daily, he put like Vaseline in my hair because he's like, hey, Roberto Duran used to do this. You look good, you'll fight good. I'm like, all right. So I look like a real douchebag now. You know, I've got this like hair slicked back and stuff. But I could see the guys getting tired. So I keep going, and finally, I pin him against the corner, and I just wail at his head twice. Boom, boom. His head bounces off the rope, comes back, another right hand cross across the face. We're not wearing headgear. Mm-hmm. Lights out. Boom. Yep. Hits the canvas. A doctor runs in. The fight is over, and I'm like, yeah! And everyone's like, oh my God, is that guy okay? And I'm like, fuck yeah! Like, it's my first fight, so I don't know about like this like sportsmanship and stuff. Like, make sure the guy's okay first before he starts out. So I'm parading around the ring, you know, and it's like, and that was the start of my boxing career. That's right. I remember I was at that fight actually. Yeah. So the second event comes around. They put me up with a tougher opponent, and I train my ass off. I stop drinking. I start eating kale. Yep. I'm just like training every day. I'm like, yo, I'm the champ. Nobody could beat me. I'm going in like social media in China saying the champ is here and stuff like that. And I come out and just wreck this guy because I overtrained. Like, I was like too ready for this. The guy's like, holy! I beat him within 19 seconds. They're like, okay, this is up. You can't fight this guy. Nick, you're an animal. And that really fed my ego. So I've got this basketball thing that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I'm training, you know, and this is, I'm training when I'm not working or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I'm working at China Daily, right? So when I worked in radio, I had more free time, so I could train more. But the guy from China Daily was still kind of contacting me. When's your next fight, champ? You know, stuff like that. So then the third one comes around. And it's kind of like an off-site event, like a Chinese gym, and they have an event. Mm-hmm. I crush the guy there, and at this point, I'm just unstoppable, right? I knocked the guy out my third fight, knocked the guy out my first fight, knocked the guy out my second fight, knocked the guy out third fight. Who's gonna stop me? So at this point, I everywhere I go in like the foreign community, I'm calling myself the champ. Why the hell not? And you know, some people hated it, and some people were like running with it, like you were. You thought it was hilarious. So I was just going into the bar, and I was saying, "The champ is here." That's true. I was going up to the Chinese bartender and said, "The champ wants a Heineken." That's right.
So you didn't let it get to your head at all.
Not at all. And I did like this marketing side, this journalism side. It was all about like selling the fight or so on, or selling the persona of.
Oh, for sure.
So the last one I did, right, and this was like the sixth one. I did a couple other ones where I won, but I moved up in weight. So I moved up from welterweight to middleweight. Mm-hmm. Okay, I had to like put on the pounds. And it was a slugfest. But I went in there. So it was the best middleweight that the guy had on his roster for the Shuangjing Showdown. Mm-hmm. This guy's been in multiple fights. He trains all the time. He's from Greece. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So I was a little nervous. But I went in there and just like pounded and just landing. And he's kept trying to hold on to me. So, but I couldn't knock him out. Mm-hmm. Going up in weight class, I just didn't have the power to knock him out. So I just kept bringing punches off his bald head. No offense to bald people there, Brian.
Oh, thanks.
I just kept bringing shots off his head, ringing shots to his body. And he wouldn't fall. Anyway, I won unanimously, but that's what that was my last fight. So I'm a two-time two-weight division Shuangjing Showdown champion.
Maybe pound for pound. I mean,
that's exactly where I was going. Dynamite drop in, Brian. Pound for pound, Shuangjing Showdown champion.
You know, it's kind of your rise in the boxing, in the Beijing boxing circuit was meteoric, dude. I remember that first fight was ridiculous. You had no idea what you're doing.
No idea what I was doing.
Running around the ring.
I wasn't even shuffling. I was literally like running around the ring.
and like the pop that you got him that knocked him out, it was just like this.
It was huge,
like haymaker.
It was. I threw it from one corner to the other, and the guy's head bounced off the rope, and like I think he was already knocked out at the time, but he bounced off the rope, and his momentum from the head just went right into the punch, and he was out cold.
Yeah.
God bless that he was okay, but Jesus Christ.
That's funny, man.
Yeah.
So where are you on your journey now? Because this has been pretty epic journey, dude. Going from, working your way into the NBA credentials as a guerrilla journalist, showing success as a Chinese propagandist at China Daily and the radio. Was it CRI? Murdering people in the Beijing boxing circuit. Murderer. What's going on now, dude? Where are you at? Because you're not in China anymore. You're back in Toronto.
I'm back in Toronto. Mm-hmm. I've used all my experience and shifted it towards a digital marketing career. So all those Google ads you see on Google, I'm managing some pretty big clients on Google advertising. So that's been paying. I've had a really successful career so far in that. I've been in this game for 3-4 years now, and I've left the journalism on the side. I don't like the direction that the industry is going in. So I'm using all of kind of that creativity into kind of marketing, and that's been super successful for me. As far as the boxing, not so much. I'm kind of playing golf now. So really, at a certain point in time, you start winding down and settling a little bit. So I'm not as as a go-getter as I once was. I tried starting my own digital marketing company. That didn't work out. I couldn't launch it. I will in the future, but it hasn't happened yet. I do have plans to go on my own, but as of right now, the timing just isn't there yet. So I'm just grinding away at this company that I work for now that pays me extremely well and treats me extremely well for the work I do for them. So I'm quite content with where I'm at now. Future plans, I do want to start my own company, and I hope that you have me on again when I do that, because that would be some awesome promotion.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. No, I'm all about that. And you were talking about from the beginning, man, from the top, it is all about the journey, right? There's a lot of people. I mean, even the startup world it's like the Wild West, dude. Like there's so many people that are going to try and try and make it happen and I'm going to fail. Like the gold rush, right? So many people are going to try and pan for gold and not get anything, and not, they'll start their business and it doesn't quite work. But like, I think what matters is that you're doing what you're passionate about, right? What you love, what you're good at, and what people are willing to pay you for, right? And like, as long as you have those things aligned and you just keep going, or, sometimes you got to get off the path for a little bit, plan B for a little while, put plan A on the side burner. There's respect that goes with that. You know what I mean? There's respect with just the fact that you even get out there and try. Once you get back on that path, which I know you will, because I know how you are. You're that driven guy, man. You're the champ, quantum beast, baby.
Look, if there's anything you could learn from this, it's once you have a goal, once you know where you want to get to, you put the time. But it all comes down to how prepared are you, how hard are you working to get there.
Yep.
And how are you with timing? Because if you skip too many steps, that's going to catch up to you.
Yep.
So I made sure to kind of, start small and go through every single step in the process in order to get to where I want to go. And timing, they call it luck, but I call it timing. Timing is everything.
Yeah. I hear that, man. Well, speaking of timing, it's about time to wrap it up, right? You got a nice little dinner with the wifey, little birthday dinner, man. Dude, it's been great chatting with you, man. I look forward to the next one. Can't wait to hear what you got going on, man.
Likewise, Brian. I love what you're doing with 8B Media. Keep up the great work, and I hope to be on again soon.
Thanks, man. Anything you want to plug real quick before we let you go?
8bmedia.com. It's going to be the new podcasting platform. As far as plugging anything I've got going on, Brian, no, I'm all good there. But keep doing what you're doing. You have a great audience. You have great content, and we love to see the hard work you put in to achieve what you want to do.
Oh man, appreciate it, dude. It's nice to get some positive feedback like that. Nick Bedard, everyone. Peace.
You've been listening to Half the City with Brian Schoenborn, presented by 8B Media. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your friends, and leave a solid 5-star review to ensure these stories get spread far and wide. For more information, as well as to listen to other shows, including Relentless, a survivor's search for passion, purpose, and inner peace, and Beyond Relentless, be sure to check out 8bmedia.com. Thank you for listening.